What is going on, my good people of planet Earth? It is your guy, Tommy Gann, TG here for Tommy Talk. Happy to be back with you. It's been a little while. I know, and I'm sorry. I apologize greatly, truly, fully to all you good people of Earth. But, you know, things happen, life happens, stuff happens, and we pick up the pieces from there. But I'm happy to be with you now. Seems like a good time to be talking to you. Let's just jump right in. March Madness going on right now. But we're going to start with the scandal that kind of hit a new place today. The Shohei Ohtani gambling scandal. So, just to recap, people who don't know. So basically, Ohtani, he's the $700 million man with the Dodgers, super duper star. It was, the story of the offseason for baseball was where he was going to go, and then he obviously went to the Dodgers because all the big free agents go to the Dodgers because the Dodgers have unlimited money. So they go to the Dodgers, and now it's coming out that Ohtani, his interpreter, who I guess he's been with since like 2013. So it's been like years and years where these two have been together. And suddenly, it turns out that he's been taking money from him. This whole time, he's been taking money from him. And it's sad. It's very sad. It's sad to see this happen to this guy if he's actually stealing money from him. So that's the story that we've been given. That he has taken money from him. He owed $4 million and he took $1 million, two payments of $500,000. And people are asking now, how did Ohtani not know that he had been gambling this money and taken this money from his account? And of course it's complicated by the fact that, it's illegal bookies. It's illegal to bet in California, even though it's legal to bet like everywhere, in most places, if you like, here in the United States. It's illegal to bet in California, so you have to use illegal bookies. It was a sting on an illegal bookie operation, and that is where this information came out. So the first thing that came out said that, he had given the money to his interpreter, just as a good friend, as a gesture of goodwill, giving him the money. And then his interpreter announced it to the clubhouse or something. And then after that, Ohtani was like, wait a second, wait, what did he say? He was a little confused because it was not jiving with the version of events that he had been given. And from there, they started saying that it was stolen from him. And if this really was a betrayal of trust, I feel awful for Shohei Ohtani. Someone, for many years, someone who you're kind of in a vulnerable, position. You're in a country where people speak a language that you don't understand great. He has a basic understanding of English from what I've heard, and he can speak it in a very limited capacity. And so you kind of are relying on this guy to be your eyes and ears to the world, or at least your ears to the world in this, brave new world you're living in. And instead of protecting you and being your guy, which he said he was going to be, instead, he screws you over and takes your money. Now, if he did know, and this is all just to cover his back, because of any possible fines or whatever, I don't really understand lying unless he's actually the fall guy on Ohtani betting. This being Ohtani's bets, and then his interpreter takes the fall, and yada, yada, yada. But at the same time, it feels like he wouldn't be going through the rigmarole saying that he stole the money if he, was trying to use him as the fall guy. Because if he was the fall guy, then he would just lie. Or if he was the fall guy, then he would just say, okay, I gave him the money. And then people wouldn't dig too far deep after that. I mean, there would be some talk and stuff like that, but he'd still be his buddy. And I'm guessing he probably wouldn't have been fired. Instead, he gets fired, and now he's going to be, possibly go to prison over this. So it doesn't make much sense for him to be the fall guy in that situation, like a designated fall guy. Now, obviously, there's more to come in this whole thing. It's probably not going to make that much of a difference. People are going to be talking about this for years to come. The way the internet, the way it acts and the way things last forever. People are going to make jokes about Ohtani betting for a long time. Even if the Dodgers win the World Series, they'll make those bets. And I'm betting, that they're not going to win the World Series because the Dodgers don't win the World Series because, there's something beautiful. There's some type of beautiful karma about the Dodgers taking all the free agents and spending all the money and then not winning a World Series. And you're going to say they won in 2020? It's like the Lakers championship in 2020. We're really calling it a championship. Come on. It was a neutral site World Series. A neutral site World Series. As someone who has lived through a World Series for his favorite team, not to brag, 2016 World Series champions, you can understand how big of a deal it is to go home and home, and to travel and have those travel days and yada, yada, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And not having that makes a big difference. Also, no crowd, like limited crowds make a difference, all that kind of stuff. Moving on to obviously what is the big story from this last weekend, March Madness. It is madness in March. Maybe not as many upsets as usual, but the biggest one of the weekend by far, Oakland, the number 14 seed, being the number 3 seed, Kentucky. Lots of things to digest on that one. First of all, is this the end of Coach John Calipari at Kentucky? Because, listen, it's one of those things where Coach Cal has been there for a long time, and he can still bring in recruits like nobody's business. And this may have been the most talented roster in the country this year. And yet they fall short, and they seem to have fallen short, so many times in the last few years. The last time they really got anywhere was 2015 when they lost, and they had that undefeated season. That was a great team. But he may have lost his fastball a little bit. In this time of NIL and transfers and stuff like that, you got to stay on the ball. And he has stayed tried and true with his old-fashioned kind of methods of just, sticking with the freshmen. And that's going to have to change for sure. Will he be fired? I mean, the fact that he hasn't been fired yet makes me think he ain't going to get fired. The fact that he ain't fired yet doesn't make me think he ain't going to get fired because all the hot candidates are kind of flying off the shelves at the moment. You'd think that they would either fire him or transition him like immediately to like a athletic department role, which is like in his contract where they could bring him to like a assistant athletic director role, pay him $900,000 a year, and then they can kind of go from there. What's really going to happen is they're going to change how they do things at Kentucky, probably for the better, even though I think he was not too happy. He was bragging about how much money he made players in the NBA over the years. But, if you want to win, you're not here to just develop the players. And you want to develop the players, don't get me wrong. But you're not just here to develop the players. You're here to win basketball games and to win championships. That's what your boosters want. That's what your students want, what your fans want. It's even what your players want. So you got to make that your focus. Just saying. And then on the flip side, sadly, Oakland lost their second game against NC State. NC State, another kind of Cinderella story in this tournament, unquestionably. Shades of the cardiac pack days of old. But a really cool story. Obviously, Jack Golke hitting 10 3-pointers in that first game. Wow. Tied for second all-time three-pointers in an NCAA tournament game. What a game. What a performance. Good for them. It was the big, upset of the weekend. And apparently, so I thought this was wild. And maybe I'm crazy, but the head coach at Oakland has been there for 40 years. Greg Kampe at Oakland has been there for 40 dang years. 40 years. I mean, I feel maybe I'm crazy, but it feels like in the coaching profession, either you're moving up or you're moving out. You're not staying in the same place for that long. And I get it. Oakland's not exactly, a gigantic destination or anything, like a destination school for coaches and stuff like that. But, you'd think that you'd probably, if you're going to stick around for that long, you'd probably get coaching offers, from Success, or you wouldn't have success, and then maybe they'd say, okay, maybe it's time to turn over a new leaf. But good for him, good for his team. Kind of makes proof that, it takes a while to get a program moving and rolling. But, a good coach is a good coach, and you have to understand things with resources and stuff like that. And people can adapt and change. So great on them. I loved that Oakland story. Sadly, it didn't work out, and they fell. But, still a fun story to follow, especially considering that the only other big upset was Duquesne losing or beating BYU in the first round. Then they got smacked by Illinois. At least it was a close game between Oakland and NC State in the second round. I'll say that. Another storyline, my Buffs. So they win that first game against Florida. 102-100, which outrageous offensive showcase in that game. My goodness, I've watched I would say a good amount of Colorado Buffaloes basketball, and man, oh man, that felt out of nowhere. I mean, that was a hell of a lot of points. Florida had issues on defense there, and then of course people were complaining about the refs. I saw Florida fans after Colorado lost saying stuff like they didn't have their best player on the court, and that was the ref from that first game, which, cry more. I mean, I love University of Florida. It was kind of a conflict of interest a little bit for me because obviously I went to both schools, not to brag, but I went to CU for longer, so I have to go with CU, of course, and went full in on that. It was sad to see my fellow Gators make excuses like that, and then people were saying that KJ Simpson pushed off in what was an amazing shot. They called it Kawhi-esque to end that game. First of all, it looked like he stumbled. Okay, don't pretend like he didn't stumble. He stumbled. He got given the forearm a little bit. He didn't really push. You gave him the forearm and he stumbled. What are you gonna do? You gonna throw him in prison or something? Come on. And then the second game against Marquette, they fell. Close game. Sadly, they fell short. What sucks is if they would have won that game, they would have played NC State and played Burns Jr., who was their big man. They would have played Colorado center Eddie Lampkin, who was another big man, would have played Burns Jr. on NC State, another big man, and it would have been a hell of a matchup of the Giants. Instead, alas, it was not to be. It was not to be. It's disappointing. I had high hopes, especially in that game against Marquette, where it felt like Colorado was sticking with them, and they took the lead at certain points, and they gave it back. I just wanted them to stay with them, keep it close, and then grab it at the end, and then they just couldn't hit the shots when they needed to. The shots in those moments where if you make that shot, you take the lead, and then you're in a perfect position to get back down the court and, tie it back up or take the lead again. Instead, they miss the shot. They're down by 2. They miss the shot. Marquette makes the shot, and then you're out of range. You just don't have a prayer. So, sucks. Go Buffs. Tough way to end the season right there, but what are you going to do? And then I want to talk about this, because this bothered me. So, this guy from DraftKings. So, in the second round, it was Favorite Fest. It was Favorite Fest, especially through that first day, where you had, 8 straight favorites winning, which was crazy. But then there was this guy at DraftKings, they do betting content over there, who was betting favorites. He was just betting favorites. And then he was like, after he hit 5 in a row, he was like, I'm him. What? You bet favorites, bro. You bet favorites. You're not doing TG's quick picks where you're actually, going out on taking a leap of faith and trying to actually make good picks. You're just taking favorites. You're just taking favorites. You don't get any good odds at all in doing that. It doesn't make much sense. You're being ridiculous. You just took favorites. Don't pretend like you were some type of... And then they try to be cheeky about it with some shirt they put on them. No. He meant that. He was clear about that. Get out of my face with that. Come on. It's nothing impressive betting a bunch of favorites. Come on, man. Let's be serious people here. Let's be serious people. No cringe on the internet today. Please. Finally, and I think this has to be brought up. So Purdue, I thought that they were going to fall. I really did. I did not expect them to make it as far as they have. Sweet 16. Credit to Purdue. Hey, you goof up multiple years in a row and you don't look like you can go anywhere and you finally make your way. And I had a friend this weekend remind me, shout out Ryan Weber, that the last time that, every time a number 1 seed has lost to a number 16 seed one year, the next year they came back and won the national championship. And then I reminded him that it's only happened one time before, and that was Arizona. That was not Arizona. That was Virginia. So, come on. But hey, Zach Edey's tall. Gotta give him that much. Was he like 7'4" or something? I think it's been said. It's definitely been said, not by me. This is not an original take at all. But I mean, if he was 6'11", he's probably flipping burgers, right? He's not. He ain't starring in NCAA tournament games. You know what I mean? He's playing like low Division I ball at best. Like, come on. Like, the guy, he obviously dominates off the boards because he's giant. He's one of the famous Purdue giants that just come out of nowhere. And it's crazy. Purdue, the chicken company, say they don't use, like, steroids and stuff in their chickens and stuff. Not steroids. I didn't mean... My point is, they don't produce these giant chickens, freak of nature chickens. But Purdue basketball, they produce giant freak of nature basketball players. Or at least they recruit them. So Zach Edey, he ain't making it in the NBA. He's just a merchant of his height merchant, taking advantage of that beautiful God-given frame of his. And, I think Gonzaga's going to end up winning against Purdue in the Sweet 16. They had a nice run. I mean, St. Mary's obviously, they did some big stuff in that conference this year, and they lost in the first round. Gonzaga's still going, so... And also there's been this narrative going around. I swear to God, you've seen it in a couple different places. A couple different commissioners, coaches that have been saying stuff like, hey, maybe we need to make it, tougher for these automatic qualifiers from smaller conferences. It's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Why would we do that? Why would we do that? Why would we do that? To make your job easier? To make your teams get in easier? No. The thing we love about March Madness are these small schools making big storylines on these big national stages. It's what makes March Madness the best postseason in sports. And I'll say that again. The best postseason in sports. I love March Madness with all my heart and soul. It's so amazing. And just the concept that you're going to try to strip that away or even expand it. Expanding March Madness is a terrible idea. The 64-team format you have right now, or 68-team, whatever, but the 64-team, two-sided of the bracket type format is perfect. It's perfect. It's the perfect amount. And people will complain and say, these certain teams in the Big East didn't make it. You know who you can blame? You can blame them for putting teams in like Virginia, who put on such a horrible, awful performance against Colorado State in the first four. Such a awful, awful performance that what are you expecting? You put in, a team on name recognition, essentially, and you expect them to be, contenders really in the tournament when you have teams that are clearly better that you keep out. Come on. We're being ridiculous here. We're all being ridiculous here. Gotta catch my breath after that. Finally, and this has been... this is a developing story. They didn't drop the story, the article today. They probably will soon. I was hoping they would drop it so I could recap it and go through it. But, what are you going to do? Kim Mulkey, the LSU head coach, women's basketball head coach, is now under fire, or it looks like she's about to be under fire. She went in her press conference after their game and basically said, like, the Washington Post is about to drop an article. Don't believe it. It's all fake and stuff. I'm going to, if they print out anything false, they're going to sue. I'm going to sue, yada, yada, yada. Well, first of all, that makes me think, what is in that article? What do you not want me to know? Kim, what were you saying? Because she said some suspect things in the past. She was at Baylor before, and Baylor has had some very infamous scandals, and she's had some not so wise words, and then people criticized her with how she's handled Brittany Griner over the years, and there was accusations that said that she told Griner to stay in the closet, and she didn't talk enough when Griner was being held overseas in Russia. So she has a bit of a spotty track record already. And so people were expecting a real bombshell to come out with this article. And I think that you can include me in that. However, they haven't dropped it yet, which means one of two things. One, they're just dotting their T's and, dotting their I's, crossing their T's, and to make sure that they're ironclad set once this comes out, if there is legal action to be made against them. That's one. Or two, they have figured out something is seriously wrong with the story and they're pulling it. I'm going to make a guess. It's one. I'm guessing it's probably going to come out in the next couple days once they get kind of the legal thumbs up, and they're going to go through with it, and it's going to look really, really bad, and who knows what it could be. Some people on the internet were trying to imply that she was a part of a certain storming that happened in the first month of the year during the last election year that was led by a man in horns, and that's preposterous. But that's the sort of thing people on the internet's going to throw out there. When we're just doing wildly speculating, and people are going to keep wildly speculating that stuff until we actually get the article. It's almost better to just get the article so we can just know. Although, I will say, it's kind of smart to really get you ready for it so that you're ready for some real wild shit. And then once it actually hits, it's a lot softer than you expected. And then it's like, all right, okay. This is it. This is what we were all worked up about. Okay, this is bad, but so it could be a master PR strategy. It could be, but at the same time, I don't know. In any case, folks, thank you all for watching and or listening. I guess you'll be listening if you end up listening to it later as a podcast. Shout out to all those people who have watched this on stream. If anyone has it all or are watching it afterward,